19 to 92. The Gerry Ryan Show, Monday to Friday, 9 till 12 on 2FM.
Well, I think you probably do recognise the music. Let me quote, though, for you. I thought as a rock star, I owed it to people to enjoy myself to the absolute limit. It was a missed opportunity for everybody if I didn't. The words of Alex James, bass player with Blur, and having just read his book, in a bit of a blur myself, and that's what it's entitled. He has certainly lived up to the quote. He's in studio this morning with a full head of hair and seems to be doing quite well. Good morning, Alex.
Morning, Gerry.
Well, first of all, congratulations. It's a very articulate book, which is always a good thing, because there is a temptation to believe that those who hold bass guitars or any kind of a guitar may not be able to do anything other than play that guitar. It's eloquent and articulate and tells a story. And sometimes a self-effacing story as well, because at no point do you eulogise yourself. You gloriously revel in the madness.
Yeah, well, it was a great story, you know, and I always thought I'd write it down one day. You know, I think any sort of rags to riches rock and roll adventure is a good story, but I wasn't really sure whether it was a tragedy or a comedy while it was happening.
Well, now, as a man who, in a relationship with children, now living in the country, you've left the erotic temptations of city life, which I think is a very good description of how dangerous a city like London or New York is.
They are erotic places, aren't they, cities?
Oh.
I mean, I realised that rolling into Paddington on the train, suddenly this big mass of whirring flesh and
even
eyes.
The best of us can be tempted.
Well, I'm a monk now. I live in the country making cheese.
Yeah. In fact, you're looking for you're trying to invent a particular type of cheese. What is it? A pickled cheese, isn't it?
Yeah, and I've been working with setting cheese on fire as well. That's a sort of rock and roll cheese.
So you're the Hendrix of cheese.
Yeah. I might call it. I'm not sure whether to call it the Hendrix or the Phoenix.
All right, let us go back in time, because the one thing that you do get out of reading this book is that there was a temptation, I recall, when listening to Blur and watching the development of the music and the albums. I think, what was it, 8 or 9?
Yeah, it's a lot, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a lot. But there was a temptation to think that this is all very serious, a very serious musical project. It's Cool Britannia, but it's a serious musical project. It's making a serious statement. Of course, the music was serious. But I didn't quite realise how much fun was being had behind it. Can you describe, just to give context to yourself and to the band, how you all got together?
It was. I look back on it and realise how easily it might not have happened, but Graham Coxon was the very first person I saw when I arrived in London. I was getting out of my parents' car when I arrived to study French at Goldsmiths, and he was getting out of his parents' car. So he was like literally the first person I clapped eyes on when I arrived in the city. He was doing art, so he was cooler than me.
Art school. Indeed, it spawned Brian Ferry, Roxy Music, Eno. Some say all the best bands come from art schools.
Yes, it's something of a tradition, isn't it? I mean,
Is it because you have so much time on your hands, I wonder, is that it?
I think it just teaches people how to express themselves and to think and make their own decisions. I mean, that's what doing any course at university does that, I suppose. It's not really about what course you...
Well, my main ambition was to avoid manual labour. That was my...
Well, so I've been doing that before. That was good, actually. I didn't mind that, working on building sites, yeah.
Really? Because I came here directly after school to London, and I worked on a building site, and I was the most gay person on the building site. I was absolutely pathetic. I was kind of like this Lord Sebastian Flight of the building site, utterly pathetic. I'm now willing to admit that. Manual labour has never been one of my things. But you obviously, you're a well-built fella, and I said that in a kind of heterosexual way. So obviously it wasn't a problem for you. But when you met Damon, there was, and in the book, it's quite amusing. I mean, you didn't quite tell him that he was useless, but it was kind of close to that. The songs are not all that you think they are.
It wasn't quite right. I mean, the amazing thing, when I arrived at Goldsmiths, I went there kind of by accident, and it was the most sort of happening place there was. All the drunkest people in the bar at Goldsmiths in sort of 1988, 89 went on to become. Well, Damien Hirst was there, and Sam Taylor-Wood, and myself and Graham, and there was something happening. That was a sort of where the Brit art sort of scene all kind of started. So it was a kind of an exciting place to be, good place for a band
And what was the idea? I mean, did you have a theory or a theme, or did you just want to be in a band?
There was no kind of manifesto. Just wanted to make music so kind of amazing it stopped people in their tracks and made them forget about everything. I don't know. I think everybody wants to be in a band, don't they?
I still want to be in a band. I mean, I found myself playing air guitar recently to something in the front room, and I went, "My God, I'm 52. What am I doing this for? You know, this is." Well, I think every guy wants to be in a band. I think, and let that continue. I think the day that you stop wanting to be in a band is a bad day.
Well, so everybody should probably, you know, so 100 years ago to be a musician. I think in order to sort of call yourself a musician, you've got to have sold 100 million records and had number ones in every country in the world. It's being a musician is just about playing music and enjoying it.
Of course, selling records is a completely pointless exercise now because nobody seems to get any money out of it now.
Well, there's different ways of getting money. You know, I think you make more from playing live. I mean, it's bad news for record companies at the moment.
Could you imagine if you were still with the guys at the moment, would you be selling yourselves to Live Nation, for instance?
Don't know. I think we've still got to do another few albums for EMI. I'm sure it'll happen one day. You know, I'd be surprised if it didn't.
Now,
scary thought though.
Yes, no, it's a very scary thought, and I know a couple of people who've done it.
It's like is there life elsewhere in the universe? They're both answers. You know, are we alone in the universe? Yeah, if we are, that's scary. If we aren't,
well, you seem to believe that we're definitely not alone.
No, I don't think so.
Well, I think mathematically we're not alone. I'm absolutely certain if you believe in mathematical computation, that regardless of your opinion, that there is definitely life out there. In particular, in your case, I think you're probably hoping for some biological evidence of the potential of life on Mars.
I think we're probably not far off proving that. I think they say all biologists think and all chemists know there is or was life on Mars.
Have you been following the recent excursions
of the Phoenix?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they've discovered recently the building blocks there, haven't they? They've discovered water.
Yeah.
All carbon. All they needed was the right temperature, I suppose, and something could have happened. I don't know have they discovered any evidence that there was any kind of organic stuff there?
There's a famous meteorite that came from Mars called ALH 84001. It's the most famous meteorite ever, and it's got what looks like a little worm in it.
You're joking.
I've seen it. Yeah.
Have you held it?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Who owns that?
A guy called Everett Gibson. He's a NASA scientist. He takes it everywhere with him, gets it out in the pub, shows it to people. And they think he's mad.
No, he's not.
But when Blur were involved with the Beagle Mars mission,
yeah,
I met quite a lot of space scientists. And
Beagle it was a bit of a tragedy, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, well...
Did that break your heart?
It did, really, because it was a success. It was a triumph in so many ways. There's that line of Kipling's, those two great imposters, triumph and disaster. And I think it was seen as a disaster because it crash landed. But in so many ways, it was a triumph because it engaged people with the ultimate kind of adventure, mankind's ultimate adventure, which is going forth boldly.
Well, are you resisting the sort of Branson invitation to go into space? Would you like to do that?
Well, we're very close to that as well. It's an amazing time to be alive, isn't it, really?
Oh, yeah, space tourism. I don't...
space isn't very far away. It's only
I'd like to do it, I must admit.
Would you? Yeah, I'd go, I think.
Yeah, I'd give it a go.
What stop? It's about 3 months to Mars. I think the first man on Mars has probably been born.
Yeah. I'm not getting to Mars, that's for certain. But I might get into the troposphere. I might get up there at some stage before I croak. You're a little bit younger than me, so I don't know whether... You're actually too old to go to Mars
probably
as well,
am.
I think.
Yeah, but I'm still dreaming about it. I still think I'm going to play James Bond and play for England, and go to Mars.
Yeah, why not? You played bass and Blur. In fact, you've still got a bit of bass playing to play. Now, one of the delights of this book, as I've said already, is the almost kind of bacchanalian delight that you tell the story of your excess, and it's proper gold card, platinum card, rock star stuff, where you make these wonderful decisions like, I'm drinking nothing except champagne, and I don't even know whether you drink anymore. Do you drink alcohol still?
Yeah, I have the old tipple, yeah.
Yeah, so you're not...
Calmed it down a lot.
You're not... You don't have... You haven't been to see the Guru Bonga Jinga Wanga who's told you that you can't drink, so you're okay on that score. But you drank phenomenal amounts of drink.
Well, it's signing a record deal's like getting on a transatlantic flight. You know, there's someone coming around with a drinks trolley every 10 minutes asking you what you want. You know, what you want when you're sort of 23 is to have a few drinks, get on an aeroplane, go somewhere and play guitar really loud and make a lot of noise and
have
mess,
women lick
and then
you. Lots of women simultaneously, it would seem, according to the book, licking you.
Why not? Why not?
And also entering the caveat that all of that is behind him now, and he's just a one-man liquor now. And but there were a lot of girls, shed loads of girls. Well, there seems to have been, doesn't there?
Well, I guess it's just, you know.
Do you look back? I detect an instant change of tone. Do you look back? Because in the book there's very little sign of you being embarrassed or a sense of maybe I shouldn't have done that. I mean, it's you state it as it was, and you say, well, that's the way I did. Don't regret a bit of it. You know, because you're now sensible.
I mean, it was just fun. You know, it's fun. There aren't many jobs where you get to have as much fun as you possibly can, and you know, I think it's probably changed recently. You know, I think you have to get up pretty early in the morning if you want to sell a lot of records these days. But back then, life was, you know, I mean, this is sort of 15, 20 years ago, really. You know, God. Really, it's amazing, isn't it? But you know, I think it's all changed. There's so much more media, and you've got to keep your weblog updated. You've got to get up in the morning and do promotion for. But you had to do channels.
Stuff like that as well, though, didn't you?
All you had to do was like make a decent record and a video, talk to the NME, go on top of the pops, and go to Groucho's, get drunk.
I like the story where you poured or he poured the drink. Was it you who poured the drink on whom? Johnny Depp in the Groucho. He got pissed off because some woman another woman situation, was paying too much attention to you. And, he poured a pint, I think, into your lap.
Yeah.
Because there again, Johnny Depp was sort of associated often in dispatches. He often made comments about the band, I remember.
Really?
Yeah,
really?
He used to kind of like, I think he's quite smart, in fact, despite what may have been written in the book. I think he identified, these are very cool, these guys here, so I'll say I like them.
I always liked him.
Yeah. And then we have him pouring a pint over your lap in the Groucho.
That's what happens there. High-class punch-ups.
High-class punch-ups. They wouldn't let me in there. One only time I went there, I had to wait until Bob Geldof came along, and they barely allowed him in. In studio, Alex James of Blur. The book is a bit of a blur, describing touring with the band. My notes tell me of coked-up orgies in South America, watermelon hurling off the top of New York's Soho Grand Hotel. Now, that always seems like a good idea. It actually could result in death, because you were 60 stories up, I think, when that watermelon was thrown.
Yeah, I still don't understand the watermelon
phenomenon.
No.
Did you ever throw a television out a window?
I did, yeah. On my
stop me, by the way, if these are predictable questions. But you did. It's something I'd like to do, but I'm too mean. I'm too Presbyterian to.
I wouldn't recommend it.
Was it any use?
I checked there was no one coming first.
Oh, well, that is so middle class.
I told the police that afterwards. I think that was why they took such a lenient view.
But that's the best boy in the class, really, isn't it? And by the way, chaps, I'm throwing a telly out at 5:15.
It didn't really. It was going to land on Shaftesbury Avenue, so I thought I'd better check. But it didn't really go bang. You know, it just went thud. It was very, very unsatisfying. I thought they exploded. I thought that's why people did it.
Well, did you throw a plasma out or a proper cathode ray tube?
Good old
telly?
Tube. Yeah. I wouldn't.
Then you should have gone a bang.
Stupid. Wouldn't throw it. It was like a knackered old tube one.
You wouldn't throw a plasma out, would you?
No way.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. At least there's some sanity prevailing.
Well, actually, the dustbins, when I lived at the top of Shaftesbury Avenue, the dustbins were kind of outside, and it was easier to throw the telly out than lug it down the stairs.
I mean, I'm not against throwing televisions out of windows. I never, and I'm willing to admit this, I never fully understood it, what was the purpose of it. Because it would seem to me, because I quite like watching television, that after you've done that, throwing out the television thing, that now you've no television.
Yeah. Well, no, I think it's just a good way to sort of, breaking rules and destroying property, the kind of two maxims of rock and roll, I suppose, aren't they?
Well, I read of Sid Vicious headbutting a television and then getting stuck inside it while it was actually switched on and becoming very badly electrocuted.
Really?
That's worth witnessing, not actually doing, but I'd like to have seen that. I would have paid some money for that. Now, more predictable questions. Predictable question number 5. Oasis. Of course, it would seem once again, it's one of the good things about the book, it does sort of efficiently dispel some myths. I used to believe that the Oasis-Blur thing was almost on a par with the Second World War and the Axis and the Allies. It turns out that it wasn't quite at that level at all, and was manufactured maybe by people like me rather than you.
Well, the enemy were very good at sort of trying to sort of taunting us. They'd taunt us with what Oasis had said about us, and then we'd sort of taunt them. And I don't know. I don't think Damon and Noel will ever kind of be best buddies, but it was pantomime, really. I mean,
but what was it meant to be about? Can you even think back? Who was meant to be the illegitimate version of whatever it was? Because that's kind of what it came down to, wasn't it? There was, there is a Britpop thing that has to be done, and one of these bands is a fake. Wasn't that what it was? Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we just, but Parklife had kind of won millions of Brits and sold millions of copies, and then their first album suddenly kind of became a phenomenon, and it turned out we had records coming out on the same day. It was just it was a laugh.
Well, I kind of voted for Blur.
Did you?
For a very simple reason, right? Very practical reason. I saw Oasis in concert 3 times.
Did you?
Noel Gallagher was the only one of the Gallaghers that was there on the 3 occasions. So I felt, in terms of value for ticket price, that Blur, mostly, I think the entire band was there, and that was usually a kind of a bit of a positive.
Yeah. God,
Noel, you kind of got away with it. In fairness to him, I do recall some people not even noticing that the other fellow wasn't there. But I always thought, Jesus Christ, if I did that, well, since there is only one of me, I suppose it wouldn't work if I didn't turn up. But I mean, nobody else would get away with it. I mean, that wasn't rock and roll. That was just bad manners.
Yeah, well, there is a point where rock and roll just becomes kind of like destructive, I suppose. Yeah, it's not.
I remember, I think it was The Sun inviting readers to phone in to see who took the most drugs. Was it Blur? Or was it Oasis? I was kind of going, well, how will they calibrate that? But there was a result.
Really?
Yeah, I think Oasis won that.
Really?
Yeah. But I'm not sure.
Well, there's 5 of them.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good technical point. Yeah. Now, you did take a substantial amount of drugs. I mean, I don't know whether you made up for the rest of the band or not. I don't think you do now. I'm not aware of. How would I know, to be honest, since I've never met you before? And we're not taking drugs as we speak, so therefore it would only be guesswork. Do you regret that? Particularly with children now, because the one thing I know, I look at my kids and I go, crikey, what am I going to say when they ask me about drugs?
Well, I don't think it did me any kind of long-term damage, but the thing with kind of like chronic alcohol and drug use is that it does affect the people around you, and with drugs there's a kind of trail of dots that leads all the way back to the countries where they're produced. And I was in Colombia.
You did a fantastic documentary.
Well, I
thought that was really good.
Thank you. Well, the president's PA read my book, and so I got a phone call from the presidency saying,
Come down.
Come and see what.
Yeah. If you're not currently taking drugs, come down.
And I went there, and it does cause incredible problems in South America, because I've thought about it hard, and I don't think you can legalise cocaine and heroin. I just don't think it would work. And that means that if you've got a drug, something that's illegal, it creates a huge cash black market in a sort of basically developing economy. And
Colombia has been so utterly destabilized by the drug. I mean, the politics, the social infrastructure of the country is, their penal system has been made into a bit of a joke and rehabilitated, then made into a bit of a joke again. The corruption that it has created, the dependency economically that it has created. I mean, I don't know whether they're ever going to get themselves out of that.
It's tricky. It's really, really tricky. But cocaine's got this kind of undinkable sort of glamour associated with it, I suppose. It's a sort of champagne of drugs, isn't it?
Yeah, until you've taken it for a very long period of time, you've gone completely friggin' mad.
Your nose has fallen off.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just about putting little dinks in that sort of unchinkable armour. So I.
But have you reached that point? In other words, some people who've drunk an awful lot and no longer drink, or who've taken a lot of drugs, or who've had too much sex, or who've been cruel and are now gone on a course to teach them to be kind, and they tend to be really major pains in the arse in terms of drugs. You're not taking drugs, are you? And I think generally the response you feel like giving is, I am doing this, but I'm not as mad as you are. But of course you eventually do go as mad as the person who's criticising. But it's the rehabbed person. You don't seem to carry
sort of
the
evangelistic.
rehab. You don't seem to have that.
Good. Yeah. Well, some people it's going to kill them, and they have to kind of take that approach. Do
you believe that there are some people who have addictive personalities? I mean, for instance, like you don't see. Were you ever in rehab? Were you?
I had a bit of therapy. That was brilliant. That's so good.
I quite like therapy because I talked a lot about myself.
Oh yeah, it's just a good old moan.
Yeah, and furthermore, don't talk to me. I have another few things to say about myself here. I think it must be quite interesting. It must be quite. I actually now think that maybe it's not that difficult to do the therapy, as the psychiatrist, because you just sit there going, and how did that make you feel? And then another half an hour of bullshit from the guy who's paying you. But did you like it?
I loved it. Well, no, he was very good, actually. He said, well, stop throwing televisions out of windows and, just
go. By the way, you'll probably find the cocaine is not helping you much either.
But no, it helped just having somebody who wasn't I wasn't sort of kind of burdening a friend with kind of, confessions, because that's boring as well, isn't it? Get the professionals in, I say, every time.
Well, yes, because because you're paying the person, there is no possibility, though I deeply suspect you could sometimes see it on their faces, there's no possibility that they can betray the fact that they are now quintessentially bored listening to your pathetic drivel.
Well, I've name dropped a bit to keep him interested.
Oh, good plan. Yeah, good plan. And that perked him up, did it? Could you ever see yourself going back to therapy just to see where you are now?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. Yeah, probably do me good.
To shed your former skin, which I think obviously you've done, was that a traumatic thing? I mean, the therapy, we can laugh at it, but it does actually help, to be honest. It's a sort of an oil in terms of the passage. Don't think about that too much. But
there's a little box of tissues on the table.
Yeah.
And
Did you cry?
I don't know. I just, that wasn't very nice, though, to see, suddenly realise, people just sit here and cry all the time.
Actually, I never thought about that. There is
a box
of tissue.
Blowing your nose?
They're not. They're for when you inevitably break down and start pitying yourself.
Yeah.
But he's not going to say stop pitying yourself because you're paying him.
Yeah. I did, and they do actually say, okay, that's fine. You're all right now. I thought that what's the incentive for them to say, for them to make you better? because you keep going there and.
Well, they never quite. That's interesting. They never actually quite say you're okay. They constantly will ask you, it's always, well, how do you think you're doing? And you go, and 5 minutes ago you went, actually, I thought I was okay, but now, have you spotted something? Maybe if I gone back, Jesus, I better come again. Well, it worked obviously for you. Now you're in a relationship, yeah.
That's sure. I met Claire and we got married very quickly. Actually, we were married and pregnant within a year, and that was kind of. I mean, I suppose getting married.
Was that good for you?
That was very good. Yeah. I mean, I suppose that marriage is the kind of that spells the end of a gentleman's rock and roll journey, really.
Well, not necessarily, but I think it's a good idea to try and knock it on the head. Because then you will remain married.
What's brilliant when you're 23, being ridiculously drunk and stupid and just mucking about, it gets less and less elegant as you get older.
And let this be a word of warning for every single fella that's listening. Infidelity will kill. And there isn't a woman on the planet, unless she is severely psychiatrically disabled, who will put up with it. So it does kill. The drugs and the drink thing, well, maybe like Sid and Nancy, you can go out in a blaze of glory together. But certainly the women would have to be knocked on the head. Now, you've done that. And I noticed that you're looking down at the table. I won't, as your temporary psychiatrist, read anything into that. And I think you're much happier.
God, happiness is such a hard thing to judge, isn't it?
Really?
Don't you think?
Why are you saying that?
Happier? I hope so.
Well, are you happier?
I don't. When you're 5, Father Christmas is brilliant. When you're 20, tequila slammers are brilliant. When you're 40, cheese, fantastic stuff. You just got to accept what you are. It's so hard to let go. It's hard to let go of being. Blur kind of collapsed around the time I got married. And I moved out to the country. We bought a farm on our honeymoon. And I wasn't really sure. You never know whether you've married Heather Mills or not, do you? It's it's a leap of faith, marriage. And a lot of my friends kind of, I don't know. I stopped drinking for quite a while, and my sort of close friends could handle that, but my sort of handful of really sort of intimate friends. I mean, you can never have more than a handful of really intimate relationships. The fact that I sort of fell so sort of catastrophically in love with Claire, I think it was very hard for my close friends to cope with that. So Blur. I had no job because Blur had collapsed. I was suddenly moved house. I was living in the country, married to a woman who I didn't know really that well.
But you were wildly in love with. That sounds pretty good, I think.
But it's sort of like God. My life's completely changed. So it seemed like it was a good point to kind of write down what happened.
So, well, obviously you'd never been really in love before, because it seems to have really, I think the mechanical word is catastrophically changed your life.
Well, no, it does topple all your gyroscopes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When you meet somebody. I mean, I just realised I wanted to have Claire's kids. I suppose that was the difference. I used to fall in love 3 times a day. Particularly in Italy.
Oh yeah, Sophia Loren,
Israel. God, there's so many beautiful women in the world.
There's a lot of beautiful women in the world, yeah, and there will be more. Apparently, they're continuing to make them, but that's all past now for you. And
it works, though.
Yeah, no. I think Do
you think, or do you think the
beauty? I think is something to be admired always. And the day that you stop admiring beauty is a very sad day. And physical beauty is an incredible thing. I mean, I think it's sometimes, that moment, and you can be incredibly in love and in a wonderfully stable relationship, and you're driving down the street and you go, holy Jesus, Mary and Joseph, look at her. And you're never going to see her again, and just for one brief moment there is something so beautiful passing by the car window that you nearly crash. Now, I don't know whether women go through that, but guys certainly do, and that's wonderful. That should be there forever. I hope that never disappears. But that's different to holy Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. Well, I get out of the car and chase her up the road and try and have sex with her. That's a different thing.
It's when they're chasing you up the road.
Yeah, well, which you seem to have had an awful lot of. There seems to have been an awful lot of girls chasing you. I mean, Larry Mullen from U2 once told me, he said, I said, well, how bad is it in Japan? For some reason, Japan, for a while, seemed to be a place that women seem to have gone completely mad. And he said, well, he says, they camp out. I said, how do you mean they camp? He said, they camp out in the lobby, they camp out on the stairs, they camp out outside if they're not allowed in. He said, they just, you wouldn't believe it, he said. He said, is there a planet somewhere just outside our solar system where all these women come from?
And going to Japan it's when you feel like you're in the Beatles, going to Japan for the first time. And the first time we went there, we were totally skint, still living in squats, and we arrived, and it was like that. There was like loads of people at the airport with presents for us, and yeah, it's weird. It is weird. It was. I mean, they love Western pop music in Japan. Amazing place. Love it.
But do you, like, isn't it kind of, I really feel that we have destroyed Japanese culture, because I mean there's elements to Japanese culture which are absolutely heinous and appalling, but they were doing things while we were still rubbing mud. They were doing things with silk while we were rubbing mud on our arses, you know. But we seem to have delivered some of the most kind of tacky aspects of Western culture, and they have embraced them like religion.
Yeah, religion. That's they do things kind of in a religious way. Yeah,
like I presume Blur was just another one of the rock religions for them.
Yeah, and they have it's weird. There's a kind of Western iconography. I mean, there's a lot of Western models working in Japan, which is
Alex James, I love you.
No, they're very well behaved, the fans. I mean, we used to have security guards, but you don't really need them. Need them more in.
They're quite respectful in their hysteria.
Yeah.
God, this is incredibly. Is this racist? It is, kind of, isn't it? We've Alex James in studio. Bit of a Blur is the book. We are talking about Patsy Kensit, who I think we're both in agreement is a very wonderful person. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I promised I'd send her some cheese. Actually, I saw her a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Actually, before I get, tell me about the cheese making. It's like you're a serious.
People love that stuff, you know. Yeah. I get in taxis now. Like taxi drivers are like, oh yeah, well, you know, Blur was all right, but cheese, mate. Cheese, I love cheese.
How you're serious?
Well, because we moved to this farm, and you got to start making something. You know, farm and cheese. I've always loved that stuff. I mean, you used to throw it at me in Japan. Cheese.
Throw cheese at you?
Yeah, they do. They find out what you like.
Is that a cultural thing, is it?
Well, Graham used to get Damon used to get beads thrown at him because he liked beads. Graham used to get Ultraman. He was a kind of Japanese superhero. They didn't throw much at Dave, but they threw cheese at me. When it comes in tins in Japan.
Any particular type of cheese?
Camembert in a tin.
That would be quite dangerous.
Yeah, I took a couple of
hits,
high-speed, low-flying tin Camemberts below the knee, stingers. So I like cheese very much. And are
you good at making it?
I'm good at kind of inventing new cheese paradigms.
Okay, well, share some of the cheese wisdom.
Well, nobody's really played with cheese for years. You know, the cheese top 10's been the same.
Well, it's like wine, though, isn't it? I mean, I presume there's it's like viniculture. There's a lot of my God, there's red in this white. Are you mad? Green wine.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good idea. Green wine. Coca-Cola would be green if it didn't have the brown colouring in.
Would it?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Wouldn't be as nice, would it, if it was green?
God, I love Coca-Cola. And I won't get paid anything for saying that. But have you made cheeses that I'm unfamiliar with?
Well, there's cheese. I'm just playing, really. And yes, the cheese that we're setting cheese on fire, and it tastes really good, like a flambéed kind of cheese. And then there's another one. I'm sort of wrapping it up in hay and aging it.
Yeah.
And I like.
And what do you start with? What's the base cheese?
Well, there's 4 ingredients in all cheese.
Yeah.
Milk, salt, rennet, and bacteria, and the whole sort of
a bit of heat.
the whole paragon of cheese is just those four things in different quantities.
But I mean, is it like a cheddar, or is it a Stilton, or is it?
A cheddar takes a while to develop. It takes like a year to make it.
God,
for it to
I wouldn't
mature.
have the patience to do that. No. I want quick cheese.
Exactly. Well, it's quite easy to make a quick fresh cheese. Just let some milk.
And do you do the churning and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's boring.
But you don't use a smoothie maker or something, do you?
No, it's just like a big vat, like a huge. It's sort of like a huge Moulinex food processor, really.
And what did your wife think of this cheese business?
She loves cheese as well.
Just as well.
She wants to make.
Where is he? He's out making the cheese again.
She wants to make a cheddar. I'd like to make a cheddar. Be good.
There's money in it, I'm told. Well, there must be. I ate a shed load of it last night. Wow!
What did you have last night?
I had brie, Stilton, camembert, and then there was a chap with us, David Blakenocks, who asked I don't know what you call the kind of sommelier equivalent of a cheese person, a cheesier, I presume. But they asked. He said he wanted something really smelly, so then they knew we were Irish, and the guy brought over a thing that really smelt like it had been gestated in hag's knickers for 5 years.
Was it orange?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
But it tasted incredible. The smell was... In fact, I will say that it's a superb restaurant, Petrus, right? But I would advise them maybe to get some extraction system that kept the cheese smell down a bit, because there were occasions where I was looking at a group of women at one stage just went, God, maybe showering would be advisable there. But in fact, it was the cheese. But boys, did it taste good.
Yeah, I mean, they always do taste a lot milder than they smell. There's an amazing thing you can do with those Jelly Belly jelly beans.
Oh, I love jelly beans.
If you hold your nose and put one in your mouth,
you can't taste anything.
You can't tell what flavour it is, and then as soon as you open your nose again, you can tell.
Only somebody who's been in a rock band would know that.
Maybe.
Because there must have been several days, several flights.
Bored.
Guess what I discovered?
Well, it's true. There's a lot of time to sort of make idle discoveries.
Okay, here's a couple of texts. Question. Hi, Alex, says whoever sent this. Are you still working with Damon with the Gorillaz? Is there a new album on the way?
I was never involved with Gorillaz. That was Damon's thing.
So that's a tragic question, really, then, isn't it? Where did the name Blur come from? That's in the book, actually, isn't it? It was kind of a vote between two lists, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were called Seymour after a J.D. Salinger character, but the record company said it was too anarchy and said we needed a more kind of zippy name.
Actually, Seymour in Catcher in the Rye, is it? What's it?
He was. I think he might have been a cousin or a brother of Holden. Was it Holden Caulfield?
Yeah,
it might have been his cousin.
So you decided that Seymour was not good explanation. Would have been good in interviews.
Well, they said if you've got a short name, it gets written really big on posters.
Yeah,
and it's true actually. So we said we'd try and think of another name, and they said they would as well. And Blur was on both the lists.
Somebody once asked me, my eldest son's name is Rex, and somebody said to me, apart from the fact that I think it's a very strong name, I think it's a cool name. Somebody said, well, why did you call him Rex? I got fed up trying to explain. And I said, well, it would look good on posters. And they went, what? I said, yeah, Rex, Ryan. I said, you get really big letters, and it's exactly the same with Blur.
Alliterating names.
But it doesn't mean anything, sure it doesn't. It's not like it's...
Not anymore, it doesn't. Well, actually...
Did it mean something?
Well, it's sort of it's an incoherent utterance, isn't it? It's quite a good name for a band, I suppose. So trying to express
kind of Linkin Park album, isn't it? Incoherent utterances. Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will perform in its entirety incoherent utterances. Actually, no, it's a Pink Floyd album title, isn't it? Incoherent utterances. That's what it sounds like. You're not playing at the moment, though, sure you're not?
Not Blur, no. We almost kind of keep getting back together, but it never...
Because there's a lot of people have gone back on the road, maybe not so much back into the studio, because very few people seem to be doing that, but a lot of people, I mean, a lot of the the big old symphonic rock bands have gotten back together again. I went
Well,
to see. I saw Led Zeppelin down.
Oh, you went to the Dewberry?
Jeez,
Was it good?
It was good.
It was.
It was fantastic. Well, what was really amazing about it was John Bonham's son playing drums, and he sounded more like John Bonham than Bonham sounded like himself. It was great. And they looked like they were enjoying themselves. Mind you, if they were enjoying themselves, why aren't they doing it tomorrow night? They're not. And what stops you getting back together again?
Well, 1 minute is Damon, 1 minute is Graham, 1 minute was my turn next.
Could you put up with it? Because all the associated and attendant distractions, and maybe some of the things that, in fact, even though we're laughing about them now, and that things that give such cause for mirth and merriment as you read the book, maybe they kind of need to be there for Blur to exist.
Well, the thing, yeah, definitely, yeah. I mean, it's a very delicate thing, the sort of chemistry that makes a band great. I suppose, it never gets beyond 4 blokes in a room. Really, just it's not. I can't explain it. I don't know whether Blur will ever play again, but I hope. No, definitely. I mean, I'd be more interested in just the 4 of us just playing in a room, just for the 4 of us, than playing, 6 nights at the Enorma Dome.
Yeah, but you know what would happen if the 4 of you played in the room? If it went okay, you'd go, "God, that was we're actually quite good, right?"
I expect it would, yeah.
Yeah. Well, just one. Just one.
Just
and then
one
if the
worked
one
out.
went okay. It's funny that the delicate balance and the chemistry of it. I didn't
explain that very well.
No, but I saw David Bowie being interviewed about, it was one of those kind of George Best questions, like, where did it all go wrong, Mr. Bowie? And he said, well, do you mean, what? He said, what do you mean? Do you mean musically or personally? Or what? Because I'm very successful, And they said, well, no, but like, he said, what change? He said, yeah. He said, I think I know what you're asking me. He said, I made wonderful music. I still play wonderful music, but he said, I don't write wonderful songs anymore because I'm happy. Huh. And it was like, oh, God. First of all, very honest, but also kind of frightening.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, I think in order for there to be sort of like an actual dynamo, a sort of engine within a band, that needs some kind of sort of power source, which is usually from some sort of deep-seated differences,
unhappiness
within the personalities in the band. But and the balance is delicate.
So when you think of yourself now, I mean, obviously when Blur was alive and kicking, that's what you were. You were Alex James of Blur.
Yeah.
Okay. When you think of yourself now, what do you describe yourself to yourself as?
A big cheese.
There is no place to go after that. Look, I really enjoyed the book. I think it was I always know when a book is worth the price. It's when, even though I was very tired last night and a little bit sort of confused, to put it mildly, I read nearly the whole thing. Yeah, in one go. Now, there was a little bit of waking up and going, oh my God, what's that on the television? Also, I go through all this going, where am I? All right. Oh, I'm in London. Okay. Why? But so I read this and I really enjoyed it. I read it nearly in one go.
Thanks.
Which for me is
brilliant.
Yeah, I think unless you're able to do that, I think that more often that thing is crap. So Alex James, thank you very much for being with us. I do hope back in Dublin you have something lined up from Blur, if not something lined up from somebody else.
I might come over and to talk about the book, actually, possibly.
Would you do that?
I think so.
Yeah, to a public audience, maybe? Wouldn't that be a nice idea?
It'd be lovely, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and they'd have cheese afterwards.
Definitely. I'll bring some cheese. You got it.
Alex James, good morning.
Cheers.